Denzel Washington had accepted the invitation to appear on Bill Maher's live talk show reluctantly, knowing full well the host's penchant for pushing buttons under the guise of intellectual curiosity, but also understanding that sometimes the most powerful conversations happen in uncomfortable spaces. The audience buzzed with anticipation as the credits rolled and Maher launched into his typical monologue, loaded with political jabs and cultural provocations. When Denzel was finally introduced, the applause thundered. Hollywood royalty had arrived. Clad in a sleek black suit with the calm assurance of a man who had nothing to prove, Denzel nodded to the crowd, shook Maher's hand, and took his seat. The early exchange was civil enough. Talk of movies, legacy, the changing tides of the entertainment industry. Maher, however, couldn't resist veering into deeper waters, and soon the conversation pivoted toward race, culture, and what he framed as dangerous political correctness. Denzel, calm as ever, simply raised an eyebrow, waiting. That's when Maher pushed too far. He leaned forward with a smirk and said, "You know, Denzel, you're one of the few black actors who've made it without playing the victim card. Isn't that refreshing?" The audience half gasped, unsure if it was a joke or an insult disguised as praise. Maher chuckled as if he'd delivered a clever line, but Denzel's face didn't move. His eyes, sharp and measured, stayed locked on Maher, and what followed was a pause so powerful it made the air crackle. When Denzel finally spoke, his voice was soft but cut like a scalpel. "Bill," he said, "you just made a room full of people comfortable with an idea rooted in ignorance." Maher blinked, unsure whether to laugh or lean in. Denzel didn't wait for clarification. "Let me explain something," he continued, voice rising just enough to be felt. "You say I didn't play the victim card as if survival, struggle, or truth are cards in a poker game. What you don't see, or choose not to see, is that everything I've ever done, the roles I've taken, the life I've lived, the people I represent, is part of a lineage of resilience. You think it's refreshing because you're used to discomfort when black voices speak truth. That's not on us. That's on you." The audience held its breath. Maher shifted in his seat, trying to interject, but Denzel raised a hand, graciously, but with finality. "Don't spin my success into your comfort zone," he said. "I didn't make it despite my blackness. I made it because I embraced it." The room erupted, not with applause, not yet, but with the silence of stunned recognition. It was clear Maher had stepped into something deeper than banter. Bill Maher tried to salvage control with his signature smirk. "Hey, I'm just saying you've got this grace and toughness that transcends race, Denzel. That's a compliment." Denzel gave a slow nod. "Transcends race?" he repeated, as if tasting something sour. "Why is it that when a black man stands tall, he must be transcending something? Why must my dignity be seen as an exception to my identity?" The crowd murmured. "What I do is not despite being black. It's deeply informed by it. You think you're praising me, but you're erasing me. And let me be clear, I don't need your compliment if it comes wrapped in erasure." Maher was visibly sweating now, clearly outmatched. He shuffled his cue cards, searching for an off-ramp, but the audience had turned. They were no longer waiting for his clever pivot. They were listening to Denzel. "You say you like me because I don't make people uncomfortable," Denzel said. "But truth isn't meant to coddle you. Truth wakes you up." At that, someone in the back clapped. Then more followed. A wave of applause built, not just for the words but for the poise, the clarity, the refusal to allow narrative theft disguised as flattery. Maher attempted to reset, leaning back and offering a half apology dressed in sarcasm. All right. Don't cancel me, Denzel," he said with a chuckle, trying to paint the moment as a misunderstanding. Denzel, however, leaned forward, both elbows on the table, and delivered the line that would echo across the internet within hours. "You don't need to fear being canceled, Bill. You should fear staying comfortable in ignorance." The crowd erupted, this time with roaring applause. It was the kind of moment that felt less like a TV segment and more like a cultural shift. Maher, known for steamrolling guests with brash opinions, sat back, defeated but still trying to grin through the sting. Denzel didn't gloat. He nodded to the crowd, then back to Maher and said, "You invited me here to talk. I came to tell the truth. If that makes people uncomfortable, maybe they weren't listening in the first place." The segment ended a few minutes later, but no one would remember the last questions about movie roles or retirement plans. They would remember the pause, the tone, the challenge. Backstage, the crew exchanged looks, some stunned, others quietly celebratory. Denzel thanked the staff with handshakes and kind words. Maher, unusually quiet, stayed in his dressing room. The producers knew the clip would go viral before the credits even finished rolling, and they were right. Within minutes, "Denzel destroys Maher" was trending across social media. People didn't just share the clip. They dissected it, quoted it, turned it into memes, essays, reaction videos. Civil rights scholars applauded the moment for its precision. Celebrities reposted it with fire emojis. Denzel hadn't yelled, hadn't insulted, hadn't veered off point. He had simply dropped the weight of truth in a room that wasn't ready for it, and it had cracked the floor open. By the next morning, pundits on every network were debating the exchange. Some framed it as a teachable moment, others as a media meltdown, but all agreed that Maher had been uncharacteristically quiet since the taping. Commentators debated whether it signaled a broader cultural shift, whether audiences were finally less interested in shock value sound bites and more drawn to grounded conviction. What couldn't be debated was the fact that Denzel had delivered more than a comeback. He'd delivered a recalibration, an unflinching, unvarnished mirror, and, in doing so, reminded the world why certain voices carry weight far beyond celebrity. His words echoed because they weren't manufactured. They were forged in experience and tempered with wisdom. As for Maher, he returned to his show the following week with a few jokes, some deflection, and noticeably more humility. He called the conversation spirited, but couldn't quite shake the sense that he'd been outclassed. Viewers noticed, critics noticed, and so did future guests, many of whom privately admitted they'd now prepare a little more carefully when stepping onto his stage. Denzel, meanwhile, didn't give follow-up interviews or post about the moment. He let the truth stand on its own like he always had. But when asked later at an awards gala if he had any regrets, he simply said, "I don't speak to win arguments. I speak so people will think differently the next time they open their mouth." That, more than anything, is what struck people the most, that Denzel wasn't performing, he was delivering. In classrooms, the clip became part of rhetoric lessons. In churches, pastors quoted the exchange as a reminder that grace and strength can live in the same sentence. In households across the country, conversations happened that hadn't happened in years. People of all backgrounds, from all walks of life, connected to that moment not because it was a celebrity showdown, but because it cut to something real. How we talk about identity, how we frame success, how we diminish others while pretending to uplift them. It was, in its own way, a cultural unmasking, and Denzel, with a single sentence, had pulled off the veil. The network reran the episode 3 times due to popular demand. Eventually, they even released a longer behind-the-scenes version, but nothing could top the original moment. It was lightning in a bottle, honest, raw, and totally unplanned. Journalists compared it to moments in history when live television accidentally told the truth. Late-night hosts joked that Maher had been sent to truth boot camp, and through it all, Denzel stayed quiet, refusing to turn the moment into a brand or campaign. That silence only amplified the moment's weight, because what he said didn't need a sequel. It was enough on its own. To this day, the clip continues to circulate, shared in classrooms, boardrooms, group chats. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was definitive. A reminder that respect must be earned, that identity is not a liability, and that when someone tries to reduce you for their own narrative, the most powerful response isn't rage, it's precision. Denzel had shown that truth, spoken plainly, can silence any room, and that sometimes one sentence is all it takes to shake a nation awake.